So, Nana Adam Kakufado, welcome to Citi.
My goodness, our business is about anxiety because it's one of the things that makes political life always a very, to some extent, stressful activity, is that you're never fully in control of events. And therefore, you can't predict with the certainty. I don't know about utmost, but at least with a certain degree of certainty, how things will evolve. But nevertheless, we can all make an educated guess. We can all have a framework with which to look at things. And my feeling is strong that Ghanaians are looking for a new direction. They think that the Mahama road has come to its end and that it is time to try another path.
You're going against an incumbent government, a first-term president for that matter, even though the government is in its second term. And they are preaching the message of continuity. They have pointed to infrastructural development, and they think and believe that is going to win them the election. They think you stand no chance.
I mean, that's their calculation. And the business that we're in, you know, everybody makes their calculation. Yaya Jammeh, whom you just mentioned, was telling us, I think it was yesterday or the day before, it was only Allah that would stop him from continuing. I assume Allah must have intervened to allow the change. So those statements, to me, are meaningless. Because those who are making the statements, they don't control the reaction of the people of Ghana. That means economic performance, difficulties in the lives of people, difficulties for people as far as access to basic social services are concerned, to jobs, to good incomes. That's the alternative campaign, the message, the narrative that is being put out before the country. So, in a very effective manner. I don't think that really, when you look on paper, in Kufuor's time, it didn't prevent us from losing the election of 2008. So in itself, I'm surprised, especially when we all know the very withering, scathing terms in which then candidate Mahama described the infrastructural claims that we were making in 2007, 2008. That it is a sign of a weak argument that you should hinge your demand for an extension of power on your record of infrastructural development. But in the nature of business, I suspect he's forgotten the statement that he made then. Today, that's what he's hanging his hat on. Let us see whether it works for him on
But
Wednesday.
this message of change you are preaching, you preached it in 2012. Ghanaians rejected it. Same issue of...
I suspect so, because the situation has degenerated significantly since 2012. I believe that is a major difference.
What are the tangibles?
The tangibles are the economic data, the performances, agricultural output, culture in a decade. The same with our manufacturing and our industrial development. The indices are that are now, because we can argue the validity of the alleged results, which doesn't really advance us anywhere. But whatever be the case, the argument of change that was made in 2012 is having a much greater resonance in 2016 there, largely because of the performance, the downward decline in the performance of the thing.
But also in 2012.
My wife concerns herself about me and this hat. She says I'm black enough and I can't be seen. So let me...
And that, by the way, is for the I Am for Nana hat. For those who are listening on radio on Citi and Joy FM, Nanado just took off his hat, rolled up his sleeves a bit. But back in 2012, though, the peak of the dupes or the power crisis was really confronting us quite heavily.
No.
And it continued for years after that.
In fact, escalated after that.
True.
I can't say that the peak was in 2012.
It had then started.
It had then started.
And we moved into a year when it sort of
escalated,
took off.
right.
In spite of that, it ain't there anymore.
First of all, we have the effects of the 5-year power crisis. We have the effect has not. So yeah. So, and the really curious situation we are here in Ghana. And I'm saying it, for instance, to give you an opportunity to contrast us with the Côte d'Ivoire. We're told jobs structure. An effort was made by Muhammadu Bawumia, my running mate, to cost the infrastructural development that the Mahama government is talking about, and arrived at a figure around about 7 billion United States dollars as the figure. You compare that to the amount of money that was borrowed, and there's a big gap, which asks yourself the question, what happened to the money? When you look at the actual evaluation, estimation of what this infrastructural development has been. And then I come back to the beginning of my statement. In our country, infrastructure development, which should be a vehicle for boosting economic activity, has not done so. We're not seeing that expansion of enterprises. We're not seeing new investments taking place, businesses expanding their activity in response to this injection of money that is represented by infrastructural development. We haven't seen it. So you want to ask yourself the question, this infrastructural development, is it taking place outside the economy of our country? Is it taking place in another country? And sometimes the president is the president who is very quick to criticize those who differ with him. You can't criticize me because you have not been a president, so you don't know what it is like. A curious argument for somebody who had been a deputy minister before becoming a vice presidential candidate, and then, but whatever be the case, those of us who have never been, so that it means that only presidents can succeed presidents, as it is. It's an absurd argument.
No.
I'm asleep because I criticize the state of the roads in the Western region. He is traveling by air. He's campaigning in helicopters. I am going on the ground, going over these roads. And what I see, I experience, is what I speak about. He says, no, I'm not entitled to comment on it. And yet, the man who was brought about this wonderful new road structure doesn't take it. He doesn't find it necessary. That would be the statement of confidence that he would give our people, that this infrastructure development that he has brought about, he himself is benefiting, is using it, is showing people what he has done. But on the contrary, he's in the air.
Let's talk a bit more about the jobs. You read your manifesto. One of the ways you propose to deal with it, to create jobs, is cut taxes, you said. Income tax, I think, even import duties, abolish
certain types of
a raft of them. The question is, how do you cut all these taxes and still raise enough revenue to finance your development agenda? Because you have huge development projects you put in there, one factory, one district, dam, etc., that you propose to do. You're cutting taxes and yet you're spending. How do you balance that?
I think economic history, not just of our country, but other parts of the world, shows that is a very viable way of moving the economy. And in our own country, Kufuor, when he came in 2001, met corporate income tax, the amount of money, that is the 2000 collection of revenue, was 373 million. Income tax rate, 32%. Overall revenue generated and collected, 373 million. He brought income tax to 25%. Also attempted to deal with a lower figure of levies in many other areas. By the time he left, the amount of revenue collected was 4.3 billion. Over 1,000% increase in revenue as a result. Why? Because the tax reductions allowed enterprises to expand and grow. You have more money that you are able to retain from your work. You have more funds to be able to reinvest, expand, and grow your enterprise. So with the growth of business, of the economy, more discipline in the management of the macroeconomy led to this exceptional expansion of the economy that took place in Kufuor's time. He also took over an economy that was growing at less than 4%. By the time he left office, it was growing at 9% per year. And the economy itself had grown fourfold. The Ghanaian economy had expanded fourfold in his period. So that the mere reduction, if it is not accompanied by measures to stimulate, other measures to stimulate the expansion and growth of, bring down the general incidence of taxation on enterprises, on businesses, on individuals, on people. People have more money in their pockets to dispose of. And when people do that, I mean, we believe in trusting individuals to make decisions about economic growth and opportunity better than the state. It's a fundamental belief of ours, based on history, that individuals, corporations and individuals, private enterprises are in a better place to make decisions about how to use their money than the state and bureaucrats do. And invariably, what it means, the example in Reagan's time in America, for instance, was there, that when they cut tax rates, they found a way of stimulating and boosting the economy. That is the same thing that has happened here in Ghana. And I have no doubt that if we were to do, you would see the very rapid expansion of the economy, the development and growth of the economy that would allow more and more and more money to be in the system, grow the economy. And at the end of the day, instead of taxing people at their origin, you tax them out of the enhanced income that they're making. You in the end up making much more money. Kufuor's government, I think this is a matter that I would like to really stress upon in these last few days. With an economy that was much smaller than the economy that Kufuor passed on to his successors, was able to erect the most comprehensive social welfare, social protection system in our history. In health, in education, in care for those who were extremely vulnerable in the economic arena, the LEAP program. There were several initiatives that were taken to make sure that the growth of the economy brought relief to everybody, as inclusive as possible. Hence, national health insurance. Hence, the policy over feeding children, the capitation grant that made it possible for us to have people going to the and primary and junior schools free. A raft of policies that were financed and were made possible by an economy that was much smaller than the economy he handed over to his successors. There is not a single important social welfare intervention that has taken place in the Fourth Republic that doesn't bear the name of J. Kufuor and the NPP. There's not one that is associated with that of our opponents.
Even with the Rawlings administration, you mean? Going back that far, you mean?
But mention it for me. mention it. I mean, I shouldn't be involved in
because they're on record as saying that the NHIS, the feasibility studies, the actual pilot was begun under the Rawlings administration.
So why did they walk out? Why did they walk out
simply
for generations to move it away from the drawing board to the reality of law and of the practice of our people? Why did they walk out of Parliament? Why do people like Muhammad walk out of Parliament? If it is indeed their baby, I would have thought that is the time for them to have stood up and told the Ghanaian people, yes, this is an important advance we're making in our healthcare delivery, and it is an advance which is associated with us. These people have just merely piggybacked on our back. They didn't do that. They told the country that it was a flawed policy. It wouldn't work. It was not good for the people. And they walked out of Parliament. It is subsequently, when they saw the success of it, that suddenly they discovered that they were originally its author. It doesn't work. But I'm saying to you, let me come back to you. when you look at the economic history of our country, the one thing that will be associated with the name of John Dramani Mahama is the concept of dumso. When you mention the name of John Agyekum Kufuor, you have a raft of social interventions and policies and economic growth who have a plan and a philosophy of economic development, have the discipline to stay within their plan, stay within their, and then also a minimum level of integrity in the manner in which they look after public funds. I mean, the scandals that have besmirched our public life in the last 5-6 years, cumulatively, I think are also unprecedented. Every year we hear one or the other of all of these Jida, Suba, Sada, Wyoming, America, almost a list of transactions that have been probably stigmatized as corrupt. The violation of the public procurement law is systematic, so that sole sourcing of these important transactions have become the way and the norm in our country when they're intended to be the exception. All of these are what are associated with this period. And yet, the positive things that the people of Ghana have been able to hold on to in recent times were all policies that were done in the Kufuor era. With Bawumia keeps talking about it. He says that we put all the money that was available to Kufuor in his 8 years. It comes to something of 20 billion cedis. 248 billion cedis have been the amounts of money, loans, revenues, that have come into the hands of the Mahama NDC administration. And yet, it is this smaller amount of money that was able to finance all these critical social interventions. There's a connection there that should not be lost on people.
There's a principle in journalism that says, give it to them and let them know that you give it to them. So this is what the Kufuor administration has done. This is what you plan to do or continue in your government. You have a fine opportunity to speak to Ghanaians on one medium, the IEA presidential debate. You didn't show up. The NCC organizes a presidential debate. You didn't show up. What is the reason?
I thought that, for instance, the debate about the IEA, which had been initiated by the NDC and the president, was unfortunate. The IEA had been the instrument which had been organizing the debates. And I didn't understand how it came about that the president would then suddenly say, I will not appear on the IEA, and I insist that other people organize it. To me, I thought that was in bad taste. And there was no principle behind that decision. So, and the minute he refused to attend the IEA debate, for me, I say so with the greatest respect to the others, but the purpose of the debate, if you like, the contending forces, which is what the debate is meant to be, was emptied of its content and of its...
Does the Pakwesi Nduma and others will take offense about?
I'm saying without wanting to be disrespectful. Yes, because at the end of the day, we're involved in the situation.
You didn't see the point in going to debate. But then he showed up at the NCC and then he opted out again.
Yes, the NCC and first of all, the timing was poor for me. The debates in 2012 were anticipated for a long time and allowed everybody to be able to fix their programs in such a way that they were not hampered. In fact, on the Wednesday, at the time the debate was taking place, I was addressing a huge crowd of people at Nkoko, and that to me was also extremely important. And then secondly, and perhaps it has not been well said enough, the state agencies that conducted these debates in the opposition. GBC acts in many ways in its news broadcasts like a propaganda wing of the ruling party, of the NDC. So much also the NCC I don't see why in those circumstances I would then say that I'm being given the fair crack of the whip and therefore come before such an audience. But yeah, these are the reasons. It may be that I am mistaken.
For some members of government and the NDC, you're purely afraid to face the president on a single platform.
Really? What would I be afraid of? Faced him before, interaction. The facts that I've put out here are the facts I've been putting out in the whole of this campaign. I think it's wrong for him to be in the position to pick and choose what platform on which he's to appear. And I suspect that really, if we're to go forward down the debate, we have to perhaps look at the models in other parts of the country which put the conduct of these debates in agreed state institutions.
Is that a presidential commission, debate commission in the US?
For instance.
But the NCC could equally do that. The NCC is a state institution. You do not trust the NCC, you do not trust the GBC. Which institution possibly could have done this?
For instance, I think that the IEA was an institution that had done it before. And
you still treat the NCC and the GBC in the same light you're treating them now as being against you and your party?
I would first of all look at them with a different eye. For me, the GBC is a public broadcaster and should conduct itself as such. It shouldn't be, I don't like the idea of state-owned media as such. And therefore they operate under a charter which guarantees their independence and allows them to be able to comment objectively on what is going on in the society at any given time and not necessarily act as propaganda vehicles for the party of the day. I would not want to take over and just apply the same principle that now GBC will be turning out pro-MPP information to the people. No. I think we should get ourselves into a situation whereby GBC, as a public broadcaster, would make its own determination on what the public interest requires in terms of information and putting it out in that way, or a certain objectivity, a certain balance. And that would be what I would urge on those, on the system and how the same way, these other institutions. It's important that we have institutions in this country that work for the people of Ghana and not for governments, temporary government. Maybe government, for instance, on Wednesday is going to change.
Let's talk about something that has been dominating the headlines for the past 1 month, going to the elections. You've been accused of being a tribal bigot. I'm sure you've heard that. Are you a tribal bigot?
What do you want me to say? Yes? Really? I think it's an unfortunate question. No. But there's nothing in my career, there is absolutely nothing in my career other than a forced artificial attempt to paint a certain picture that suggests that. There's nothing in my career as a politician that will suggest that in any way. I've never been part of any tribal organization. I've never been part of any promotion of a tribal idea. I don't see tribe in Ghana. I see Ghanaians. And that is the basis on which I have entered the public sphere of our country. The fight for democracy in Ghana, for instance, my first involvement in it as an adult was in the struggle against union government. I thought the union government idea was pernicious. It was another way of covering up the idea of a one-party state. And I've always been a believer in the multi-party democratic state. And I opposed it. It was led by an Ashanti, Kutu Achampo. That in itself made no impact on me whatsoever. I thought the idea was wrong for Ghana. And that is what brought me to be part of those who agitated against it. Those who say that I'm a tribal bigot, where is the proof?
The proof, they say, is you hounded out Paula Foko because he's a northerner, and that is the evidence to show for it.
Have you read about what took place over the Afoko and the unfortunate incidents that took place in our party? Have you actually followed the discussion? Forget the twist that is being put on for obvious reasons, but actually what took place. I have very little to do with that process. It was the institutions of our party that acted to damnify a particular office holder. If we're being told that because of who you are beyond the reach of constitution and of law, it's a very dangerous situation for our country. And I don't think it's one that I myself would want to be associated with. Somebody is a guy, so that if you then think that they have misconducted themselves and you do something, that therefore calls into your question your attitude towards guys. It's unfortunate. Once we look at ourselves as Ghanaians, after all, whatever be the case, what happened over our folk is unusual. It does not happen in our party. It happened briefly.
The holding regional chairman has been bribed, so to speak, to paint you as a tribal bigot. Your reaction?
The reaction is that it is part and parcel of the narrative that some people think they need to put out about me to make their political point. I think that the revelations that came from the Bugri Nabu matter are extremely significant in telling you the mindset of those who even attempted the bribery. That for them, it is very important. It was very important that Bugri should come out and say, yes, the reason why Afoko was because Nana is against Northerners, and I've now discovered he's anti-Northern and all of that. It shows you how important that narrative is.
So you believe he was bribed?
I have no doubt in my mind about it whatsoever.
That the president and his brother were behind it?
The story that has come out so far, I've not heard any serious denial of it, and I can only assume that it is true. I don't have any doubt about it.
As someone who said you've never been corrupt and you will not be corrupt, if your Northern Regional Chairman has come out publicly to say that he has been bribed with a vehicle and a cash of amount, some amount, 48 hours passed. You still haven't instructed him to return the bribe. You are condoning bribery, aren't you?
No. He himself has decided what he's going to do with it.
As a leader of the party.
But he himself has decided what he's going to do with it. And if he has made the decision, which I believe is being made, which will come,
and the decision being?
That he will return the money. That is my understanding. That is what he has told me, that he's going to return the money. He kept the money for proof. But now that the matter has come out, he intends to return the money.
He hasn't said that publicly.
He said that to me, and I'm quite satisfied with it. He told me the story about this matter also before it became public.
Did you know from the beginning, before he went to the Flagstaff house, that there were overtures, there were plans to bribe him?
No, I didn't. It was much later. It was after the efforts had been made that I got to know about it. No, I didn't.
This is 97.3 Citi FM, your election center. My name is Umaru Sandamadu. We are live on Facebook, and we are also live on Joy 99.7. I'm here with Evans Mensah, and we are having an interview, a rare one, with the Honorable Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the leader and flag bearer, presidential candidate for that matter, of the opposition New Patriotic Party. And we are privileged to be hosted by him in our house.
Well, is it a bribe or is it a gift? If it's a gift, he may not have to return it.
That's a debate how to even define both, really. And Umaru Sandamadu was talking about 0.7 FM, also on the Joy News channel, and of course on the election center on Citi also. We need to come to the elections because we have, 4 days to go?
Yeah.
The special voting that had gone on. Yesterday you had the opportunity to meet with the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. Were you reassured?
At the time we were with her, already stories were coming out about the disorganization of what took place yesterday. Part of the problem about all the hype about this thing, of course, is the use of the terminology. I think special voting really means early voting. I think that's what is meant. That some people vote earlier than on the scheduled date. Not so much that there's something special about the exercise. But it was there when it came home forcefully to everybody that it had not gone well. And then even within the confines of the meeting, discussions started taking place as to what to do to remedy the situation. Subsequently, I believe the Electoral Commission met with the party. It was there, it was the right way. It's not going to be visited on us on Wednesday.
Are you confident that will happen? Knowing what you know now after you met yesterday?
We have to be. We have to hope that things are well organized, because if the same level of chaos was to happen on Wednesday as happened yesterday, then the country is in serious problems. I don't think that it bears contemplating. We have to hope that the measures that have been put in place, and that there were special circumstances, using the word special, but there in its true sense, that there were special circumstances that attended what happened yesterday, are not going to be repeated on Wednesday. It has to be our hope, because I believe the wish of the Ghanaian people in their overwhelming numbers is to have an insular voice can be properly articulated and heard. That's my understanding from the enthusiasm that I see of people all around, of our party people, of quote ordinary people, is that they want to have an opportunity on Wednesday to express themselves in a clear and unequivocal manner, that the arrangements are in the political space. We all take our responsibilities. I'm very careful about the manner in which I speak about these things, because I'm not interested in the personal matters. I'm interested in the institutional development that takes place in our country, and not the person. Some people find it necessary to enter into a debate about personalities. I much prefer to talk about issues and the development of our institutions.
But you're the leader of the party. You should be able to regulate your people, bring them under the fold, discipline them, and ask them not to antagonize the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, the leader of an institution of the state.
For some of them may think that it's not a bad idea to go down that way. I'm not so much. I'm not a leader, so much discipline. You discipline people, then you're told you're a tribal bigot. If people are disciplined, you have nothing to do with the disciplining process. You have procedures in your party for the way in which discipline is maintained. When you go through those disciplines.
But do you trust the Electoral Commission to deliver a fair judgment on Wednesday?
I have to, because I'm committed to the process. I have to.
You have to, but do you?
I have to. Of course I have to. Of course I have to. I have to believe that and she has made a public commitment to that effect, that she's going to deliver the best organized election in our history. I have to believe her. And I want to believe her, and I have to believe her, because this is what we have fought for all our lives, to have a Ghana where decisions about who rules, who governs, on what basis are taken at the ballot box and in peace. The fight for democracy in Ghana has been the main fight of my life. So I have to believe that the institutions that we have established to maintain the integrity of a democratic state, those institutions are working in our country. We will continue to speak about methods of improving the way in which state institutions work. I told you, for instance, about NCC. I've told you about GBC, how I find they are deficient in the way in which they understand the workings of the public, of their public responsibilities. But definitely, the attitude has always to be, whether you believe the bottle is half full or half empty. I am always on the side of the optimist. I believe it is half full.
So you believe in her and her institution, which means you also believe that we'll be winning
I believe in the institution. I think the Electoral Commission is an important institution in our country, and all of us are required to give it our best possible support. Sometimes that support is best given in criticism. Yes, because no institution is inviolate of criticism. In the last year, where criticisms that were made about decisions that they had taken turned out to be valid, and they themselves subsequently turned out to recognize it as such. So it is not the criticism that matters. It is creating the environment for the institution to work effectively, and that is what
I know one more thing that you believe in, and that is that you'll be declared winner after December 7. If you become president, are you going to politically witch hunt NDC ministers, appointees kindly? Because we have heard reports, and based on what the Supreme Court said, the Court of Appeal recently, Chachuchi Kata was free.
And in fact, just to add to that, a minister of state, the transport minister, who of course was forced to resign, in the voter region had made the point that they shouldn't vote for the MPP because if you are elected, you witch hunt people from the voter region. And that comes back to the question, will you do that?
In 2001, when we won, the president appointed me as his Attorney General. I was the first Attorney General of the Kufuor era. A series of cases came up in the courts, some of which the result of things that we had said in opposition. For instance, over the Ime rice mill. And it led to prosecutions of a handful of people. Some were successful prosecutions, others were not. I took the view, which is a view I could, is on situations that ought not to be. I think we all of us have to accept that the mere fact that somebody is a minister or a politician, doesn't that put them above the law? Even the president is not above the law. So if at the end of the day a president, we've seen it all over the world, presidents who after their term in office are being stigmatized for acts of corruption and of embezzlement or of theft of public resources. If that happens and you are then made to stand up and face your accusers, then that in itself for me does not constitute witch hunting. Witch hunting is deliberately manufacturing and distorting things in such a way as to put people into trouble. But if you assemble the facts as honestly as you can, you put them before the tribunal, and then the tribunal makes the answer, that makes the determination that it takes. In some cases, I mean, there were people who were tried in my time as Attorney General. I never bothered to appeal. Those who were found, who were acquitted, Kwesi, Ahoy, Sergio Okran, and
the most famous one, Chachuchi Kata, he got acquitted and discharged this week.
Yes, well.
He will say like there's evidence that the whole case that you started against him initially was witch hunt.
I don't believe so. At the end of the day, I mean, it may be. I don't know whether the state will appeal the decision to the Supreme Court. It may be that the Supreme Court will take a different answer to it. But a High Court judge of some quality, a High Court judge of some reputation, was the one who found that the facts of the state assembled against him were true. A Court of Appeal has taken another look at the matter. The Court of Appeal's decision in the matter is not conclusive. It's not the final thing. It depends on whether the state intends to let the matter rest there or to take it further. It may be that in the context of somebody who has already been pardoned, that really, it's to some extent, it's a charade in any event to continue this line.
Are you embarrassed by the turn of events that the
determination institute make up an offense or not? There can be no embarrassment in that matter whatsoever.
He said the court was packed and he spoke at a press conference purposely to jail him. That's
his point of view. That's his point of view. And it would be that is his point of view. I don't know what court was called. Initially it was a court of one. It was a High Court judge, an appeal court judge sitting in the High Court who did it. If the Court of Appeal has subsequently set aside that judgment, for me, I'm clear in my conscience.
In other words, if you become president, you will apply the law, regardless of who it affects.
That's it.
If it affects members of the previous government, so be it. The law is applied. Is that what it is?
This is the reason why, because of the atmosphere in our country, is also the reason why we're looking at setting up an office of a special prosecutor, giving that person certain independence of the executive, so that they can make those determinations as to who to prosecute, who not to prosecute, without the heat and the color of a would-be political association. And therefore, hopefully, we insulate the process. Because at the same time, if we go down the argument that is implicit in what you're saying, is that when politicians get into office, whatever they do, they're beyond the reach of the law. And I don't think that that's what you want to get at. That people can come, steal our money, and go away scot-free. I don't believe that that is a culture that any of us want to encourage. Or do you want to encourage that?
Absolutely not.
Exactly. So that if somebody has been a minister, they've been found to have put their hands in the till, should they or should not they be prosecuted, in your view?
Well, in your view, you
I'm asking you.
Well,
would you prosecute them?
If they have been found to have been involved in embezzlement, whatever it is. The law will have it that they should be prosecuted.
And I believe that that is exactly that's exactly what the rule of law means. Yeah, but always recognizing that those who put the case, the accusation, are not those who determine issues of innocence or guilt. You assemble the facts, you put it before the tribunal, and then the tribunal will decide whether the facts that you have assembled are of sufficient quality as to say, yes, the offense has been made out. That decision. And this is why we have the separation of powers. There's a group of people called judges. Their duty is to make that determination. And then there are the prosecutors or the executive whose duty it is to bring the matter up. But you cannot have the matter, the prosecutor and the judge being one and the same person and making that determination. That's exactly why you want. I think that the time has come for us to chart a new path. Where we have been in these last few years has not taken us to where we should be. The difficulties we've had with the economy, the difficulties we've had in the management of our individual and collective lives are not difficulties that should have been there. If we had had a government that had a more focused, honest appreciation of what was possible and what should be done, of our national economy in over 2 decades, where we have unprecedented levels of unemployment in our country, agriculture, know the difficulties involved in our educational system, our healthcare system is under serious crisis. You put all of these matters together and we see a nation in crisis, a nation in systematic difficulties. And what I'm appealing to the Ghanaian people is that we have put out before them, in our campaign, in our manifesto, in our public comment, an alternative way of handling the problems of our country and getting our country going again and bringing about prosperity and growth in Ghana. And I'm praying and asking that they take that alternative vision, that alternative path to heart, and give us the chance on Wednesday to make it real. Because I believe we have the capacity to do that. We have the men and women, we have the policies, we have the vision that we can put together to bring progress to our nation and to bring prosperity to our people. I happen to believe in the destiny of this country. The whole of the hype about the Black Star, really, to me, they're the center of my dreams about Ghana. And I believe that vision that got our people 70 years in West Africa to make that dream a reality and improve their lives and bring prosperity to them.
Wish you all the best and thank you very much.
I'm very grateful. Thank you very much for coming to my home on this day and going through this exhausting interview.
We wish you all the best for the elections ahead.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, presidential candidate of the NPP, and who, of course, is going to go into battle on Wednesday with, of course, a host of other. You've been live on Citi97.3FM, also live on Joy 99.7 FM, on Joy News Channel, on Multi TV, and streaming live on the internet as well. My name is Evan Spencer.
My name is Umaru Sandamado.